All right, guys, welcome back to another video. I just want to do another video with some more of the, fallout of what happened yesterday with the layoffs across Xbox and across their gaming division. There were some other things that did pop up. We have some more information as to kind of where those layoffs did take place. First of all, we know that they cut out a bunch of customer support uh, jobs and they're being outsourced. There was another thing here talking about the actual department that created physical games for Xbox, and it looks like that is going away, although we do have some further clarification here from Jez, who initially tweeted out that they had fired everybody who was putting out physical games on Xbox, and he kind of clears it up here saying, just to be clear, they consolidated. There's still a team for this, and there's no plans right now to quit physical from what I've heard. But of course, we do seem to be on that trajectory. So it is something that is most likely on the way. I mean, going to full digital makes complete sense, especially on the Xbox platform. We got this information here from Matt Piscatella in terms of retail tracking. And we kind of have a breakdown here of how physical games are sold across each platform. You have Nintendo 50% physical, makes sense. A lot of people buy Nintendo Switch games physically. They have the entire game on the cartridge itself. The ones that don't, there is a little bar on the box that says you have to have an additional download. So it makes complete sense. I don't think I buy any of my Nintendo Switch games digitally. I pretty much buy them all physically. PlayStation, I buy way more physical PlayStation games than I do buy digitally. They're 40% in terms of physical sales. All of my first party PlayStation games are physical games because I play them and then I sell them because I mean they're 20-hour experiences usually at most that I'm getting out of it. So then you look at Xbox, 10% of the physical sales on Xbox, where the rest is digital. So the writing is on the wall, especially from the Xbox side of things. They are going to probably be the first company out of the big three that go completely digital, but the others will follow suit. PlayStation is going to follow suit, and at some point, Nintendo will follow suit as well. It's just the way that the industry is going, and I'm definitely in the minority on this because I still like my physical games. I still like having a physical collection. It just kind of gives me that cozy feeling. Although I know a lot of games don't have all of the data on disc, there are some that do. I know there is a perception there that all games are just unlock keys to the store. That's not true. There are games that have the data on disc. Most of them, though, don't have very much. So I like, just makes me feel cozy to have those physical games on my shelf, thinking that if anything were to happen, I would still be able to play those games. The reality is, even if you have the physical disc, if the internet goes out, if it comes off of the store, you're probably not going to be able to play most of your Xbox and even PlayStation games in the future. A lot of them you're not going to be able to, but if you have the Switch, you're going to be able to. It's just a question of game preservation here that I think a lot of people don't talk about or don't really care about and don't see that we could have a future where a lot of the stuff that you think you own, you don't actually own, which is interesting about that discussion about Game Pass and subscription services and how people are always like, oh, you guys just like renting your games. Well, even if you're just buying them full, even if you're buying a digital version of it, if that game comes off the server, if there's no internet or something along those lines, you don't own those games. They can take those away at any point that they want. So we are getting into a point in gaming. If you've been playing for a long time, if you've been playing all the way back to the cartridge days and the Super Nintendo and the NES and stuff, we're getting to a point where it is kind of disheartening, a little disappointing, a little scary as to what's going to happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years from now if you want to play some of these games that just aren't available on the back end servers on these stores anymore. Are they just going to disappear? And that's why when I see everything going digital, I am a little wary of it, but it's just the way of the future. And I completely understand that. So that makes sense when we look at these numbers. If Xbox is consolidating and maybe reducing their team of producing physical games, I mean, even one of their biggest first party releases, Hellblade 2, is not getting a physical game, where there was definitely a split in the gaming community, in the Xbox community, as to whether this was a good or a bad thing. For me personally, like as somebody who likes physical, I think they should put out a physical game, just even because it's a big premiere game coming out from Xbox. So we'll see. Maybe they do eventually announce a collector's edition or something along those lines. So this was just kind of more information as to what did happen yesterday. We also did have information here about the actual firings or layoffs at Call of Duty Studios. So we have here from Kami13. Call of Duty Studios hit by layoffs yesterday. Sledgehammer Games, 30% of staff. Toys for Bob, kind of disappointing to see this. 30% of their staff, and they're a much smaller studio. We know that they make those remakes of like Spyro the Dragon and Crash, and they do a phenomenal job. So I wonder what's happening there. And then you have High Moon Studios at 10% of the staff. There's actually a High Moon Studios employee who is being used for console war fodder. She tweeted some stuff out. I'm not going to go and show her. But anyways, that was kind of ridiculous. People were doing that. But Toys for Bob losing 30%. I wonder what that means. Are they going to be integrating with another team? What are they going to be working on? Because for me, Toys for Bob was one of the studios I was most excited about coming over to Xbox because of what they had made with like the Spyro and the Crashes, and they did great stuff with those remakes. And I love 3D platforming games. I was hoping that they would be the ones that would help bring back a game like Banjo-Kazooie, but now with 30% of their staff gone, who knows what's going to happen with Toys for Bob? But people, this is the hottest topic right now on Xbox, and it's unfortunate because Xbox was on a very, very hot streak of great news after great news after great news. This comes in, destroys that hot streak, and now we're really only talking about a lot of negative stuff because of these layoffs. And people are wondering, why is there so much emphasis right now on what Xbox has done? We do know that a lot of these layoffs were just redundant rules. They laid off 1,900 people. You can't have a bunch of people just doing the same thing. It's a business. That's the reality of the world that we live in. You're not going to have a corporation whose goal here is to make money and to make as much money as possible, wasting money on people doing the exact same thing, because it just makes no sense. It's very, very inefficient. But why is there so much scrutiny on Xbox where there isn't as much scrutiny when it happens across the industry? Like on my channel, I've pretty much talked about most of the layoffs, Embracer Group, PlayStation, Riot, like everything that's been going on. I talk about it because it's really giving us a look at where we are within the gaming industry, and how, yes, we're getting some of the best games we've gotten consistently now for a while. Like 2023 was a phenomenal year. 2024 is going to be a phenomenal year. But for the people working in the industry, it's very tough with all of these studios downsizing, reducing their costs, because they're at a point now where I think AAA games have become so expensive. These companies, these developers, these publishers are realizing that to be sustainable, to be able to have a good profit margin, they're going to have to reduce how much it's costing them to make these games. So why is there so much scrutiny on Xbox? It's a simple answer. It's a $3 trillion company. Realistically, if Microsoft and Xbox wanted to, they could have kept those 1,900 employees, but that's not how the real world works, right? That's just not logical to think that corporation is going to do that. Even a $3 trillion corporation, where they have to answer the shareholders, and the shareholders are going to be asking questions if why is Xbox gaming division not making a certain amount of money? Why are there profits here and there? Why do they have all these employees? And they have to be able to answer those questions, or they're not doing their job as looking out for the best interest of the business. And this is why never just blindly love a corporation, right? Because the end of the day, they aren't going to care about you. They're just going to care about your money. The other thing that I'm kind of confused about here, this is kind of me just more of a ranting video, but the other thing I'm kind of confused about here is Mike Ybarra. Now, I don't know that much about Mike Ybarra. I'm not like a big fan of him or anything along those lines. All I know is that he was a major part of Xbox for about 20 years, worked on things like Xbox Live, and really was there during some of the best years at Xbox, and he was a prominent role during those years. So he did obviously a good job at Xbox for when he was there. And then he left to Blizzard, went there, and I don't know really his overall track record there. He was there in 2019. Ups, some downs, right? One of the things that we saw just recently, we have this person here who tweeted this out, and he is a combat designer in exile. He was previously at Blizzard Entertainment, and he tweeted out about Mike Ybarra. He was 100% a part of the problem in regards to Blizzard's culture, retention, and safety. He knew this was coming. He refused to stand up for those who were forced to RTO regardless of health, income, distance, etc. He ruined lives. So he tweets out that he was a part of the problem, and the only thing he mentions here is return to the office. So we remember there was an infamous quote, I believe, from Mike Ybarra, basically saying, if you don't want to work in the office, you maybe shouldn't work for Blizzard. You find somewhere else to work. And it was Activision Blizzard pushing employees there to go back to the office work once the pandemic was over. So this is what I'm seeing here in terms of a very negative thing. But my stance on this is, I tweet this out. Is it truly telling people to go back in the office to work like a ton of other professions after the pandemic, the thing that people hate the most about Ybarra, or am I missing something here? I am super interested as to why is Mike Ybarra hated? And if he is hated, is it really because of this one thing about asking people to go work in the office, like essentially every other normal person out there who had to go back into the office? To me, if that's the only reason that people at Blizzard while he was there complain about as the main thing to why he was bad, I don't really have too much sympathy for that, because it's just the reality of life. Like, you got to work from home for a long time, then the pandemic ended, you have to go back into the office like every other person in any other profession where this happened to, and people's income, distance, and health and all that stuff. I get it's important, but pre-pandemic, what was everybody doing? Everybody was going into the office. So I don't know. I don't have too much sympathy towards that. I don't know if anybody else there disagrees or agrees with me on that take, but I'm just kind of interested here on what was Mike Ybarra's issues with being pushed out of Xbox again and at Blizzard. Maybe stuff will come out in the future. I have this thought that, well, we will never really know as to what truly went down here. Obviously, some of the stuff is redundancies. What truly went down with the survival game? Because maybe Xbox made an incredible call here and canceled a game that was going to be falling flat like Redfall fell flat. But we will never truly know, maybe until years in the future. I feel like a really interesting documentary or something is going to come out of this situation, and some cool interviews at some point when people can talk. I'm sure they all have to sign NDAs or whatever, if that's even really a thing when you're getting laid off. I'm not 100% sure how it works. I'm sure Mike Ybarra had to sign some sort of a document where he can't really expose some of the stuff that he knows, some of the intelligence he knows. So maybe years and years, decades down in the future, I think that will be something that will be super interesting to see. But I just kind of want to talk a little bit more about what did happen yesterday, as I did give a long video this morning going over it, but just some things that I wanted to get off my mind. I thought they were very interesting. But I will end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.